Hello, everyone, and welcome to Weekly Manga Recap. It's March the 11th of 2020. I am Nick here alongside Chris, and it's a manga day. It's Wednesday. It's a manga day.
It's a manga day. We petitioned the president of the Earth to actually make that.
Yeah, and President Fauntleroy was obliging, and so now we have this proper day dedicated exclusively to talking about Japanese comics that you read in the opposite direction that you normally think of with your Western brain. Yeah. So,
what's your favorite thing about President Fauntleroy?
Is the fact that he carries on with pride, and his father, Montavious McGlanahan, left a large hole for him to follow, but Fauntleroy has carried on adequately and more than lived up to that pressure.
I like his 7 heads. It was like a yes and game. I took it to a weird level. Like, what is he, an alien or?
One for each of the
days of the
7. Yes, yeah. That's why he was able to give us Wednesday.
He has control over those things.
And the circle. There we go.
Completed. Dust our hands off, everybody. We're done. Improv complete. Put a little check mark next to it.
7 heads. All right. This is going to be an odd week for manga. Guys, not just because we've got chapters that are going to be releasing in the middle of the episode, not just because everyone's paranoid about touching each other, which is why it's a perfect podcast listening day, because we're miles away from each other. This is the way that humanity is meant to
I can lick my microphone all day and Nick can't get sick.
This is the way mankind is meant to communicate in the 2020s, just miles away from each other. No touching, no getting within 6 feet or 600 miles of each other. Same diff. So, but, oh man, there are some chapters here that are going to be like, whatever. There are going to be some that are going to have very important plot developments that we got to get through. And there are a couple where Nick the shipper is going to come out because
you mean the first one?
The first one and the middle one. So I don't think we can squeeze anything out of One Piece. It's very difficult to ship in One Piece by design.
Yeah.
So
that's why it's the best series.
Let's get into it. Starting off with My Hero Academia for the recap portion, week manga recap. Chapter number 263, I Want to Be With You Guys. That sounds like a song, doesn't it? I want to be with you guys,
like I can imagine like this is from Yellow Card's like less popular album, like a B-side track on that.
I want to be with you guys.
I had somebody at trivia recently. I had somebody tell me that, like, I forget how it came up. They were just like, I made a joke about Yellow Card. And someone's like, hey, Yellow Card's fantastic. And I was like, that's not what 16-year-old me remembers. That's kind of the sole interactions I have with Yellow Card. But
really, Yellow Card is great. Name a second song of
I was like, oh, he did. He started immediately listing them off. And I was that's where I had to stop. That's where I was like, are you in Yellow Card? Are you like, because if you were if you were one of the guitarists from Yellow Card, I couldn't tell you you're wrong. I don't know.
Start singing all of their tracks by heart, pitch perfect, and you're like, are you sure you're just not making up new verses to Ocean? Like, I'm pretty sure these aren't real.
It's like, if it's not Ocean Avenue, I'm not sure it's a song.
I can't, prove that it's not a Yellow Card song. They're like, don't stop believing. That was Yellow Card.
I was like, they might have covered that. I'm not. It sounds like a kind of lame song they'd cover. Hey, look, I just looked it up. Oh no, actually, they stopped being active 2 years ago. Well, hey, what are you gonna do, guys? Nothing lives forever.
He's trying to, do a grassroots campaign to reunite the band because he misses tour, and that's why he was I don't know. Was he at work that you had this conversation?
He was one of the people there for trivia, which sounds exactly like what the members of Yellow Card would be doing with their time. They hang out there.
All right. So, getting into the chapter itself proper. This is the other front of the battle between the heroes and the Metahuman Liberation Front / Liberation or whatever they're called now. They changed their name 3 times. Fuck.
Paranormal Liberation Front or something.
Yes. So, we're watching the rear guard for the beginning of this. We go to the front squad for the other part. It was established at the beginning of all this, in case you don't recall, that the rear guard is to, make sure that, everything doesn't get out of hand in case the front lines, people get past them, because there's going to be this huge, massive battle breaking out. And we get this kind of thing that is both it's a kind of a back and forth between a kind of macro view of the action and a micro view of it. Because there's, you see like the battle lines formed. There's a big 2-page spread that is very reminiscent of the opening of the X-Men animated series, with the 2 sides rushing towards each other. We see Cementos uses his powers to disrupt break into one of the buildings, dissolve the entire thing as people rush in towards each other. But the entire rest of the chapter is from the perspective of Kaminari, who is one of the students who is here with the front unit, along with Tokoyami. And I think those are the only 2 that we have established are actually in this front group. And we start off with the rear guard, where Mineta is being a useless piece of shit. He's just sitting on a fucking rock. And Sarah's like, will you get up? We have a job to do here. You're like, whoa, what if the guys in the front do their job? We don't have to do anything. You're like, stand up, you lazy piece of shit. Jiro uses her listing abilities and says that, things are starting. They're on the move. There is a Tiger Marine cop guy whom I'm sure that we've seen before at some point or another, but I don't remember who he is.
That's Tiger Marine cop guy.
That's his name. Yeah. Yes, his name. You can look him up on the fandom page.
Yeah, he's in a romantic relationship with Gang Orca. I'm just creating it in my mind, and this is a wonderful story that's now going on. Tiger Marine cop guy and Gang Orca, they kiss, they break faces, sometimes at the same time. They're the animal dudes. Bing. It goes for 17 seasons.
Gotcha.
By the end of it, the 2 actors hate each other. That was always the saddest fact about Golden Girls to me, is like the cast has been very open that they're like, yeah, we didn't really care for one another. Like on the show, we had to play basically sisters, but once the cameras were done rolling, none of us were all that close to one another. Like, oh, why are you doing this to me? I mean, phenomenal job acting, but why are you doing this to me?
What is a show that you watch currently that would give you that would give you the same reaction? Like, the way that people like, oh, they portrayed this very sweet relationship, and then you find out they hate each other, and it just kind of breaks your heart.
I watched Through the Office recently, and that would be a show where if they were just like if John Krasinski was just like Pam, whoever the actress name was, I don't even know, Pam. She's so smelly and boring. Like if he said something like that, I'd be like, oh, that's uncalled for. Or like Modern Family, if like they were like, oh man, I fucking hated those shitty little kids. God, they were so annoying.
Why did they get run over by a bus? If they said that about the youngest kid, I would probably forgive them, honestly. The one that I've forgotten all the characters' names. I haven't watched it for like 4 seasons.
Like the youngest of the 3 kids, or
no. The one that
Sofia Vergara's kid, the one she has, the second one. Yeah, I don't know. Tommy, something like that. I think I stopped watching around that point.
And I looked back recently and I found out that Haley is apparently back together with her shitty boyfriend from the first season. I'm like, that means she didn't grow, though.
I remember seeing a couple episodes, and the idea was that, oh god, what was his name? I can't remember. But something like that. I remember seeing him, and the idea is he's still kind of a dim-witted guy, but he's like gotten his life together. I remember seeing an episode that suggested something like that.
Anyway, so Tiger Marine cop guy, star of 17 seasons of his romantic sitcom show, says that gives a little bit of a pep talk to everyone, saying like, hey, everyone be alert, we've got a massive threat in front of us. And Jiro kind of comments offhandedly, he's like, I'm not really too worried about Tokoyami, but and Yaoyorozu puts her hand on her shoulder, comforts her, and says, I'm sure he'll be just fine. Cut forward to Kaminari, who title drops in a very awkward non sequitur, I want to be with you guys, which is not in response to anything, is not replied to in any way that makes sense. So I don't really know what means exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
because he's with them. He's running alongside them right now.
He seems like he's nervous. So I think what he's saying is, I want to be with you guys back in the back line as opposed to the front line.
You got to speak more clearly when you're panicking, Kaminari.
Yeah,
come on.
It's pretty. You just said you guys. I mean, that could apply to anybody. You really didn't specify any one group. Come on now.
Stupid context-based Japanese doesn't translate well 100% of the time.
Darn stupid American language not being perfect with everything. God damn it.
Midnight is trying to comfort him by saying, hey, look, we need your work here. And just think of it as though you're helping out the adults who don't have what it takes, which doesn't do anything to comfort Kaminari, because he's like, what do you mean some of you guys don't have what it takes? I'm relying on you to protect my scrawny ass. Tokoyami tries to give him a pep talk now by saying, hey, I learned something about you back when we were in the band together at the school festival arc, the best arc that is now currently airing in the anime. I learned something watching you play guitar. You're amazing. And Kaminari's like, why are you talking about how good I am at shredding? That's not helping. No. We got some action stuff, buildings collapsing, Mr. Skeptic shouting for reinforcements. A guy who looks basically... Imagine Juan from Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire and Emerald, or I guess just Emerald. The guy who takes over the water gym. Imagine him, but an electric trainer instead of a water trainer. That's what this guy looks like.
Yeah, I didn't grasp that he was an electric dude at first. I was like, wow, Kaminari's kicking his ass already.
In his hair.
I was like, Kaminari's kicking his ass already. And I was like, wait a minute, he hasn't done anything yet. Oh, he's the one doing it. Never mind.
So this guy walks forward as everything's collapsing, and he's like, let's shake things up. This is what happens when we're just waiting for Shigaraki. I say we get things started. Big, huge face-off between heroes and villains. We see what's happening inside of the building that's collapsing. Some, like Mr. Compress and Toga are trying to rush around and such. Headshot calls back to everyone saying, hey, don't let everyone escape. Kaminari still looks nervous. Midnight rushes up to Kaminari and says, hey, look, don't let the stage overwhelm you right now. If imagining random people elsewhere doesn't do the trick, think of the person who matters to you most right now. And he looks over his shoulder, and his point of view zooms all the way back to Jiro, as he was thinking to himself, I want to be with you guys. And there's the clarification you were talking about. And Jiro distantly, seemingly, says, get it done, Charge Bolt. And Kaminari looks back as this new electric guy, Amplivolt, I guess, because he said, or I guess that's his quirk's name, is preparing his electric attack. And Kaminari looks all determined as he rushes in. And Tokoyami thinks to himself what he was basically trying to say before, I know you now. And they were practicing with guitar and stuff like that. And how hard Kaminari was practicing to do well for their performance. And he's commented, Jiro acts all shy and awkward, but I know she's nuts about music, so we ought to do our best to perform. And Tokoyami says, from the bottom of your heart, you care deeply about your friends. So Amplivolt, or whatever this guy's name is, unleashes a huge burst of electricity, but it's all absorbed by Kaminari's lightning rod ability. Oh no, you didn't realize that there was a Pokemon with that in the party. Now all your electric attacks will be sucked up and do nothing. this is a moment.
He's
by
like,
the way,
I've never played Gen 3. What are these abilities?
I was a Gen 1 only. Why am I not the strongest Pokemon with my Alakazam? Speed and special, that's all you need. What's this special defense bullshit?
If you have a single move in your lineup that's not Psychic or Psybeam, you're fucking stupid.
What about bug Pokemon? Most of them were poison and were weak to Psychic, and all of them sucked anyway.
I was gonna say, like, was it the only bug attack in Gen 1, like, fucking Twin Needle or whatever?
Pretty much, and it was used exclusively by a Pokemon that was weak to Psychic because it was Beedrill. Gen 1's not a very balanced game.
Not at all.
So Kaminari gets this big moment to shine. Electricity's crackling all around him as he sucks it all in. And he says, let's mop up the others real quick so the guys we left behind don't need to worry. As he pretty much thinks that he's got this guy completely neutralized because lightning cancels out lightning. So there you go. Meanwhile, inside of the crumbling building, or one of the crumbling buildings, nobody has found Twice except for Hawks, who has him seemingly completely pinned down. He's got all of his feathers pointing at him, floating in midair, as Twice is in a very dignified, let's call it, position, ass way up in the air. And he's just saying, what's going on? His best friend seemingly has betrayed him. Gasp! So what's going to happen here? So, this is definitely the most blatant ship teasing that My Hero Academia has probably ever done. Like, beyond Uraraka explicitly, flat out, definitely having a crush on Deku, which has been commented upon multiple times. This was, oh, yeah, they like each other.
Yeah, especially for one that goes both ways.
Because Deku's ignorant of Uraraka, seemingly. I have already noted on Twitter, I don't really care for the ship. Jiro is my favorite. Look, I have a Jiro figurine that Nicole made for me. I am getting the My Hero Academia video game, which is coming out this Friday, and I'm going to be a Jiro main. I treasure her and am protective of her, and Kaminari is not good enough for her.
I remember reading this chapter and getting to that page. I was like, Nick's gonna have strong feelings on this one way or the other, and I think I know it's not gonna be positive.
I will say this. This kind of chapter is the reason why is an example of My Hero Academia character building that shows that there is just enough focus on the minor characters that make things like this meaningful. You know, the stuff that we have not. It's not even the only example that happens in this chapter. There's also the thing with Hawks and Twice. Think of how much less this would mean if not for the fact that we had seen in a couple of chapters previously how Twice and Hawks have been getting along and becoming good friends. But, you know, the stuff that we've seen, like, you know, with Aoyama becoming friends with Deku, you know, the closeness that certain characters have, and the stuff like the school festival, like who hangs out with who has established relationships with who. Kaminari and Jiro have an established dynamic. You know, he overcharged himself and she laughs at him. But at the same time, he was also the one in the school festival arc who was basically the one who managed to convince her to lead the rock band thing by, you know, saying like, oh, you know, your skills are so cool, you know, and all that stuff. And so if this had just been a thing where like, oh, two characters that we've seen in the background this whole time, apparently one likes the other and one is worried about the other, they'd be like, well, who fucking cares? But because you had enough, then it's like, okay, now now we see that something has come of that. It's come of those moments that we've seen before. And it's nice to see that.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy this chapter a lot. I do like that this big fight is about to happen, and the characters we're focusing on are the Class 1A kids, which has kind of been something I've mentioned before, where it's like, I feel like when all these big events happen, sometimes we don't focus on them enough. But it's nice that, like, seriously, like 50 characters are heading into that fight. The first one we take a focus on is Kaminari, and then by, like, association, Jiro, and it's like, oh, that's like, it's really nice. Like, that's kind of the way I hope to see this. I know there's not a ton of Class 1A characters in the front lines for very good reasons. But it'd be nice to kind of spend more time on them, as much as I love Gang Orca and various characters that might be on the front line. Like, those are the characters who I'd like to see more of. So it was nice to get this chapter. I can't say I felt anything for the ship reveal, whatever you want to call it. It was kind of me like, okay.
Is there a ship you can think of in My Hero Academia at all that you think would make you feel anything? Besides Tiger, Police, Marine Dude, and Gang Orca.
Maybe Kirishima and Acid Girl.
And Ashido.
Yeah. Even that, though, I'd be like, good for them. You know, I'm glad that they're nice. Like, that's probably about the only one I could see myself, like, feeling kind of interested in.
I could definitely understand that, because you really liked, I mean, Kirishima's backstory was popular on this podcast, and she played a big role in that. So there's definitely, emotions there that I can understand. Yeah.
What if I just named two random characters? I'm like, Coda,
honestly,
Coda, and Invisible Girl.
Honestly, dude, like, the My Hero Academia fandom is, I mean, because of the nature of the type of series it is, with so many, young students. I mean, it's like how Naruto was. Yeah. Like, there's all these different characters. Like, so just freaking pick a pairing, and there's gonna be some sort of fandom for it. So yeah,
I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, Mount Lady and Washi Washi.
Yeah, there's a lot of examples being named in the chat right now of like popular ships, some of which like you would be very surprised to hear that are just extremely popular and are honestly very vanilla compared to some of the other stuff that's out there. Like Toshinko's a big one. All Might and Deku's mother. That's a pretty big fandom. So
I could dig it.
Anyway, so that done. Let's move on to Actage. This was an odd chapter. Like I read it the first time and I was like, yeah, okay. And then I read it the second time and I was like, this is just kind of weird because there's some stuff that like. Anyway, scene 104, Trigger. No, not a bonus World Trigger chapter.
World Trigger!
We gotta wait a month for that. Sorry. So people are still reacting to Chiyoko acting all beastly and such in her Iron Fan performance, where she's going back and forth between being like bestial and demonic, and then very composed despite having all the anger underneath. And Ricky observes that she's going back and forth between being beautiful as an angel and terrifying as a demon. Their plans to have her character keep ricocheting back and forth between those extremes, which I don't think is exactly what manufacturing the moment of people seeing Chiyoko's other face. I don't think that's an ideal strategy if you ricochet back and forth between them. I would want to use that in key moments of the story, as opposed to like she's constantly going between them. Imagine like if I guess the difference between like a two-sided personality and then there's like James McAvoy in Split, where it's like he has to constantly be changing because there's however many of them he's got to portray.
Well, so I watched recently. I watched The Lighthouse, which is the black and white movie, William Dafoe and Robert Pattinson. It's kind of like a psychological horror. The idea being, though, that, Robert Pattinson's character shows up at this lighthouse. They're the only two people that are going to man this thing, taking alternating shifts. And, they're responsible for making sure all these ships come in safely. And it starts, they're kind of friendly. There's a little bit combative. But then as things go on, stuff starts going wrong. Then essentially they just start losing their sanity. And so much of the performance is about them having one scene where they're normal people who are sometimes combative, sometimes friends, and then on a switch, they go insane. So when I was reading this, I was like, yeah, it is kind of weird they jump back and forth. And I was trying to think of performances that felt like that, and Lighthouse stuck out. But at the same time, the way we're being presented to this is from like 20 seconds into the play they're doing that, and I'm like, maybe
They're
slowing it
in
down.
one short conversation that this is going on. So yeah, it definitely gives the idea that time is like being dilated right now, as opposed to compressed, despite the fact that things go on to another scene pretty shortly. There's also a note about how Chiyoko seems to be very cognizant of where the cameras are, and she's making sure that each one that is cut to captures her expression in exactly the way that she wants it, which is a callback in a way to Kay learning that technique when working on Death Island. Kay is blown away by how well Chiyoko's doing. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, Chiyoko, they established like she basically directs herself in those shots, so she's just doing it here, I guess, with the idea. It is sometimes strange, especially when it's a multi-camera setup, that it's like, how does she know which camera is active? But I guess kid can throw a football in under a tenth of a second. I guess she knows which camera's on her at what time. So
maybe she watched the recording of Kay's performance and is just using that. I don't know.
Potentially, I guess.
Yeah. So everyone's like, oh, wow, she's gotten so perfect so quickly. Kuriyama did a good job. And then Wakatsuki. Do you remember who Wakatsuki is, Chris?
I'm flipping through the... Oh, she the assistant girl?
She's not the assistant girl.
All right, then no.
Wakatsuki was one of the actresses that was just on Death Island.
Oh, that girl, yeah.
She has kind of just shown up occasionally as being like, I need to get better because, you know, all these people are outshining me. And so we see in rehearsals what Kuriyama did to improve her performance in particular. And so he holds up a lighter directly to her face and flicks it on. And she, you know, jolts and falls away from it. And he's like, is that too hot for you? And she's like, yes, it is. Well, if you still don't love your performance, perhaps you haven't tasted the heat of the flaming mountains. And then before she can respond to this weird comment, he says, have you ever wanted to kill someone? He's like, no. Have you ever watched a mother hunt for her son's foot after it was blown off by a landmine? What are you talking about? Have you? No. Have you ever watched a war veteran racked by trauma relive the battlefield, or young children sent into a crowd with bombs strapped to their bodies? Have you smelled the stench of blood and burning flesh? Has a foreign woman ever sacrificed herself to save you from a stray bullet? Have you ever been begged by a woman to keep taking footage instead of asking for help as she lays the pool of her blood? So anyway, after that little flashback and revealing moment, Kuriyama says, if you don't know heat, touch fire. If you haven't tasted the tear of murder, use your imagination, which is not the same as touching fire because you don't know what heat feels like, but okay. But he says, like, this is a war story, even though it's a conflict between like 4 people. It's a war story. You are aware of your own lack of ability, so that's why you can't even lament that others don't recognize your talent. Arm yourself with real power, Wakatsuki. I'll help you. So this was fucked up. I mean...
the line I want to just, like, I do love the Princess Iron Fan as a war story. That sounds exactly like the title, like one of those YouTube video essayists do. When they want to get, like, clickbait.
And here's why.
Yeah, they're like, Avengers War Game is the romantic comedy of our age or something like that, where you're like, I guess I kind of squint and see what you're going for here, but this just feels like it's a
So that's why I'm going to click the 3 dots and say, do not recommend channel. Goodbye. This was so weird and so very disturbingly revealing. Because you know he's talking about his fucking self. Like, come on. The point is, and the lesson that Wakatsuki takes from this is that, okay, so he sees that I'm not armed with the tools that I need in order to put on a good performance, so I need to obtain them. And as she's preparing to take the stage in the present, she looks at Chiyoko while thinking, he sees what I like and dislike. He sees what I want to become, what I want but can't obtain when looking at Chiyoko. That's cool. And I do like that they keep on pushing the idea that there are these actors who literally just do not have the same gifts that Kei and Chiyoko do, so they have to take more extreme measures or different extreme measures in order to be on the stage with them even. Uh, we got that with Tezuka and Kei's performance. So yeah. So Wakatsuki is performing strongly? Question mark. I mean, after all that, you gotta, obviously we know why she's doing so well now, right? No, she just is. Take our word for it. And then Kuriyama has another speech because the first one wasn't enough. He says, "Some actors go their whole lives without managing to break through that shell, and he did it so easily." Oh no, that's not him saying this. This is Wakatsuki's friends commenting on her performance.
Is it Araya?
It is Araya. You're right. Words bubbles change a lot. Anyway, what Kuriyama actually says is, "Just like that idiot Yamanoe. What's with directors trying to change actors on opening night? This isn't a movie. We have time. What are rehearsals for? Do the work during the rehearsals. That's the advantage of theater." Really? I mean, he's right, but why are these theater directors so much worse at this than him? He's not a theater director, so how does he understand this so much?
Because he watched this fucking woman's body bleed out in front of him, begging them to keep filming her dead child. Nickens, what happened? War's chaos!
Back when I was in Nam, I was just thinking to myself, if we had rehearsal time, this would have never happened.
It's like, whatever you do, Mr. Director, remember that that rehearsal's the time to really get the best out of your actors. Also, oh, my guts are everywhere. This hurts so much.
I mean, this is the double-edged sword of shonen, let's just call it, going to that nth degree in order to make your points, to really exaggerate it in order to get the effect across. That sometimes it really backfires and feels like, well, this is just completely ludicrous and silly, and it doesn't have the desired emotional impact. But there we go. So, and also, yes, Kuriyama, you're completely correct about the way that theater productions are supposed to work. And yes, it is weird that, like, literally this is the first time that someone is like, I'll use the rehearsal time to prepare them for what I want them to do. Anyway, Ricky comments that the stronger Wakatsuki's performance gets, it's strong, trust us, the more our gaze is drawn to Chiyoko. An angel in a flower garden, an angel in a battlefield. What stands out when the background changes isn't the background, it's the angel herself. I mean, that's not necessarily true. But anyway, so Kei looks at all of this and reflects on how things were collapsing towards the end of her own performance, and how she had said that she wasn't sure that she could perform the remaining nights. And she thinks, I don't know how to connect to that anger anymore, but, how can I say that to everyone? She missed herself. I thought that we'd lost, but we still have tomorrow and the next day. So essentially she has been inspired by Chiyoko's performance. They're like, okay, I've got to get back on the horse and I've got to do the other two performances that I've got to do, even if I don't feel like right now I can emotionally connect to the character I'm meant to portray. And of course, Chessmaster Kuriyama comments one last time, I can't have you holding Unagi back, Yamanoe. I need her to continue to grow. Momoshiro, you're the trigger. I need you to stay a step ahead of Unagi for a bit longer.
Hot dog.
So this was weird.
Look, I get it. I get it, but I don't get it. Like, as the circle of act age continues and my relationship with it, I get it. It's not working, but I get it. Roll credits.
Okay, so Spy Family.
Spy Family.
No.
Do one for everyone. No.
Well, I mean, there's a character. Never mind. We'll get to it. So we find out that Anya's getting a Stella Star because she helped prevent a civil war, basically. So good job. Have a shiny. There you go. But Lloyd tells her, like, we have to keep this secret. Don't say anything about it at school because, you know, you can't let people know why you got it, you know. And although his exact words are, the police could take you away forever if you do. Very blunt. Good job. So, Anya's like, if I can't get a Stella Star this way, then it's back to Plan B, my friendship scheme. And so she recaps that her plan is to, you know, go over to, I forget his actual name, Scion Boy, and what's that?
Damien, wasn't it?
I think you're right. Scion Boy.
I was gonna say, I think I just remember him having, the exact name you would expect for that kind of kid. I feel like there's no one in the world named Damien that's not a fucking cock. Damian Wayne, is that the first one you're going to? Super cock.
No, I'm trying to think of. Actually, the first Damien I thought it was Damien Sandown. I was like, no, huge cock, like because that was the character. He was a huge dickbag. Anyway, I give up. So, Anya recaps that her plan is to, you know, bring up the fact that she's got a dog to Scion, and you know, he'll be like, oh, well then, you know, bring it to my house, and I'll show that my dog's bigger than yours. And Anya's like, I'm gonna save the world so many times, but she has like an evil look on her face while she's thinking this. It's like, what's wrong with you, girl? So she brings this up to Becky, her good friend, and of course, because she's 6, she's completely forgotten about the whole Starlight Anya thing, which is a relief to Becky. And she's like, what kind of breed is it? It's a white dog. Well, how old is it? I mean, he's big, you know. But Becky's like, well, if he's a cute dog, you know, we should get together and have our dogs play together. It's like, aw. Or she says weasel. So either that's her dog's name or she's got a weasel, which she's a super rich girl. She might well have a weird pet. So
it could be an animal called weasel, because isn't weasel spelled differently? So weasel or
no, that's how you spell weasel. Yeah.
I thought weasel had an A in it.
No.
Hold on.
Go ahead and look it up. So Becky's like, okay, well, I can come to your... And then Anya's already gone. She goes out to Damien, and she's like, guess what I got? A dog. And Damien looks at her and goes, so what?
Yeah, okay, I'm right. Weasel has an A in it.
Really?
Yeah, I think that's Wiesel.
A-S-E-L?
Yeah, I think this is Wiesel.
Yeah,
like
no.
like Ellie Wiesel
Okay.
from Night.
From what?
From Night, the book about the Holocaust.
No.
It's a very sad book. It's very important to read.
What, about the Holocaust? No.
Oh man, it's brutal. I have a tangent to go on at some point about a show I watched. Okay. We'll save that for another time.
All right. So Anya gets a shocked look on her face. She looks like, you know, a horror reaction image, basically. And then she falls to her hands and knees and is like, oh no, the world's doomed. My one plan to getting good with this stupid kid has failed. So Damien's hangers on her like, haha, you managed to lay her low with 3 simple words. You're so savage. And he's like, what? What? Oh, he didn't mean to be mean to his crush.
He was just like, I just didn't know what do you want me to say? Did you have a dog?
It's such a little boy thing, you know, like, yeah, so what? You're just not understanding.
Does your dog fight crime or?
So you have a dog. Why should I care? It's not, it's an icebreaker, you stupid kid. So he sees that Anya's upset though. And so he's like, what's your dog's name? And his hangers on her like, what the fuck are you? But Anya gets a bright look in her face and she's like, his name's Dog, because she hasn't named him yet. And Damien turns his back on her and is like, you are wholly unfit to own a pet. That is not a 6-year-old insult. So at lunch later that day, Anya is trying to come up with a name for her dog. She's asking Becky, "Well, how do you name a dog?" It's it's such a very little kid thing to do. It's like, how do I do that? Um, so she's having difficulty trying to think of one. Becky says maybe you could do something that describes how he looks, and she's just like, "Furry." Okay, maybe just let your mom and dad name it instead. She gets home. Henry Canninger greets her at the door. And
Hello, I
they
understand
just.
that I was the topic of much conversation at your domiciles this day. What news have you returned to the font too big to me?
What is your decision? Will it be peace or war?
I am fine with either.
As long as I get my belly rubs.
You know what's on the stakes.
So Lloyd suggests they take him for a walk. They go to a dog park. Anya makes the note that she wants to hold the doggy string, which is what she calls the leash. And Lloyd's like, when you're older, he will overpower you immediately. He talks about how, you've got to be responsible for him. You've got to, you've got to discipline him properly. And then after that, he gives very like mature, a little bit too mature advice for, caring for a pet and stuff. And then when talking about his name, she's like, "Oh, I'm really bad at picking a name." And he's like, "Well, you need a name that's easy to call and easy for the dog to discern. So I've heard that they prefer plosives and other hard consonant sounds." You fucking nerd, Lloyd. And so Yor has a very like ditzy moment because she hears dogs prefer explosives. She has an imagined conversation of asking Henry Canninger how he wants her to kill the target. Like, do you want me to stab the target? No. Poison? C4 again? You always want to use C4s, Henry Canninger.
It's the only way to ensure there will be nothing left afterwards for the police to put together.
There must be no evidence left behind.
You must make a statement, but at the same time, you must leave yourself mysterious.
So they go into the dog park. Anya's running around. She's trying to get Henry Canninger to play fetch, but she doesn't have a frisbee or a ball or anything, so she throws her shoe instead. And he's like, "What do you want me to do with this object? I do not understand."
This is not delicious nor fun to play with. That is clothing. Clothing should not be put in mouths. Unless it is your mother's shoes, in which case I will happily chomp down on them to bide by time.
My favorite meal. It helps me to assuage my anxiety, which occurs whenever I'm left inside the home alone for more than 15 minutes.
I have no concept of time, so I understand that you have been gone for forever, I believe is the exact time.
When you went away to school, the reason I was so happy to see you back was because you had been gone for 17 eternities straight in my eyes.
Oh, this is horrible existence I live. Now back to the shoe.
The key to understanding the shoe is to understanding life. Understanding the soul. Not the soul, but the soul, inner soul, not bottom soul. It is a homophone. You see, a homophone is. Oh, is that the soft food you brought for me?
Oh, and I shall continue this lecture at another day. You may go now. We are done.
But make sure you are back at the exact moments that my food is done. Otherwise, I'll take you and abandon me forever. So, Anya thinks that the reason why he's not following her directions to play fetch is because he doesn't have a name yet. So she starts just dashing around to random people in the dog park. It's like, "What's your doggy's name? What's your doggy's name? Why'd you name him that?" And stuff like that. So she comes up with all these ridiculous names like Lucky Vanilla Princess III, Mick Angel Charlie Shogun.
I'm sure I've told this story before, but anyone who's a long-time listener to Weekly Manga Recap will remember I used to have a cat named Liam. And my favorite, he was named after Liam Neeson. And anytime I took him to the vet, the confused look on the vet's face as they'd come out to be like, Liam Neeson, and then I walk up with my gigantic fat cat, like, here you go. And I'm like,
here it is.
Like, oh, I thought I was in for a crazy day. So I'll just take care of your grossly overweight cat.
The thing is that Liam Neeson is also in the vet's waiting room every time. That's why there was all that confusion.
God damn it, when am I going to be able to get up there and get my dog in? I just keep
Mr. Neeson, that's Mr. Neeson, that's a children's drawing. I drew this myself. I have a very particular set of skills, none of which includes art.
But I try. I practice every day.
This time I made sure that the doggy had 4 legs. Isn't that nice? Anyway, there's an introspective moment that happens in this that it disrupts the very cutesy entirety of the rest of the chapter. But Anya's like riding around on the dog while he's running around with the other dogs. She falls down into the ground. She's laughing and stuff like that. And, Yor just says, oh, she's enjoying herself. Isn't that nice? And Lloyd just thinks to himself, what he just said to Anya, you have a responsibility to care for this creature for its whole life. And he looks at Anya and thinks, who am I to talk? When my mission is over, this so-called Forger family will be over too. The agency will do what they can for these two. But of course, I'll never see them again. After the crisis we had, it couldn't be more clear that the peace between East and West is merely the thinnest of veneers. We need to bring this Cold War to an end, and soon. That's the best possible future for everyone. So, aw, he's gonna miss this family if when he leaves them. That's what he didn't say, but that's what he feels.
Sometimes it's what characters don't say. That's the important thing.
Lloyd says it's time to go home, but Anya realizes her gloves are missing. They've fallen off at some point while she's been playing. And she's like, oh, that was my favorite pair. And they're looking around for them. Henry goes sniffing around for them. And oh no, a mean-looking bulldog has got Anya's gloves in his mouth. So Anya's like, give those back. And the dog's like, rah, 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 rah. And Anya can read his mind. And he's like, I found this treasure. It's mine. And Henry just kind of comes up to the bulldog, looms over him, and just kind of taps him on the shoulder. And the dog drops.
The dog falls like on its butt, like, whoa! It's like, yes, now you understand what can be done with a non-violent approach. Do not test me again, or you will see what the violent approach is. And I assure you, you will be on worse landings in your butt at that point.
And if when things have calmed down a bit, I will be back to sniff your butthole. So I hope you will oblige.
Yeah. In future meetings between us, there will be no animosity. We shall sniff crotches like best friends.
So Henry returns the gloves, and Anya recalls a scene from her favorite anime where Bondman, the spy, returned the stomach warmer that had been taken by the League of Evil from Princess Honey. This sounds like an awesome show. Anyway, so Anya's like, you're just like Bondman. You got my clothes back for me. And then she looks down at his paws and is like, oh, you've got the black gloves and feet that match up like with Bondman's outfit. And so Anya's like, I've picked a name out for our doggy. And they get home and she gives him a big old bow tie of a collar and says, this is our dog, Bond. And so they're like, all right, sure. And it seems like he likes it. He's got a cute collar. And Lloyd's like, well, B is a good plosive. You fucking nerd. So Anya's like, all right, Bond, it's time for your first mission. Eat all this dog food. And she eats a bit herself.
I also like how the dog looks at her and she stares back. She's like, I've had worse.
She introduced him to his toilet, which is a litter box style thing.
They have them. I'm surprised the dog, I guess he can't read her mind. I don't know. I'm surprised the dog would immediately use that though. Also, he was just at a dog park. How does he still have poop in him?
Then Anya's like, all right, Bond, let's watch cartoons. It's time to discover your roots. And they watch Bondman together. Oh, his little tail's wagging. And Lloyd's a little annoyed because he's like, it's study time. Come on. but time passes and after Yor's done the dishes, she's like, "Oh, hey, Lloyd, look," and Anya's curled up with the Bond, and they're sleeping together, and it's very sweet. And Lloyd's just like, "All right, maybe we'll give her a pass tonight." It's a very sweet chapter. But Chris, most important thing that we've got to decide: do we continue with Henry Kissinger impression, rather, or should we switch to doing a Sean Connery voice for Bond?
I mean, Sean Connery one is great, but come on, you can't. We can't beat Henry Kissinger. Come on.
We're gonna have to like. I mean, the longer the series goes on, people are like, why do they do a Henry Kissinger voice for Bond?
I mean, come on. There's so many options.
Do like? there's Sean Connery and all those other actors who played Bond who have not nearly as identifiable an impression to go with them.
No, I mean, obviously, like, even at the end, my mind was just him, like, I was hoping for a nice Chianti to end the evening with, but I suppose this will be adequate.
All right. Yeah, this is a very sweet chapter of Spy Family. I love the conclusion and the way that Bond is named, because it's like, hey, continuing the spy references and stuff like that, but also doing a nice justification for it in universe. And I like his new bow tie. So
yeah, I think it was a very sweet way of doing it. And I really enjoyed it.
Let's do Eden Zero, Chris, because it's live now. We can actually read the chapter.
Let's load up Eden Zero, chapter 85. Loading. 85, our future. I think Hero's starting to get a foot
Look
fetish.
At my feet.
Yes, I was like, I think
Chris.
Hero's starting to get a foot fetish.
Starting to.
Like, it's starting to really be obvious now that, all right. Anyway, Rebecca woke up. She was I don't know what you'd call it. She was in the darkest timeline and used Leaper to jump back into the past. That's where we wake up.
Yes. She used Leaper to make sure she caught the die instead of letting it land on 5.
Yeah. And she's very, very happy because she's like, it was all just a dream. I had just the scariest dream. But then basically something immediately happened. She's like, wait a minute. That's what happened before. Maybe this isn't a dream. So she basically just grabs a towel and starts heading over to the group because they're about to head out on the mission now.
Heaven forbid I grab clothes. I've got enough time to do both. But she's got to stop them before they get out.
She has to get them right there. And it looks like I think she actually just like uses the bed.
She uses like the bed sheets instead of the towel. Yeah, it looks like she does that. Yeah.
Well, I think she also travels in the bed. Because she's sitting in something.
I think that she calls them up on communicator before getting out of the bed.
Oh, is that what she does? Oh, okay, that makes sense. So yeah, they're like, "Oh, cool, Rebecca, you're okay," and she's like, "Ah, good, you guys."
You can tell how relieved I am by my cleavage.
Yeah, exactly. So she basically calls everyone together for a meeting and explains everything that happened. She's like, "Yeah, it felt so incredibly real. Like I remember the fear and pain, like I was there." In my dream, he lost a dragon and he killed Shiki. And everyone's like, yeah, but it was just a dream, right? It doesn't matter. Hermit's like, well, it's never been scientifically proven that anything like this exists. But if we assume that Rebecca has gone back in time, that might explain it. And it's like,
it's such a weird way of putting it.
I was like, I guess in a universe where a magical space dragon could eat years off your planet's life, I guess it makes sense they would immediately jump to time travel as the only reasonable solution. It is a bit odd, but it works, I guess.
Well, the problem that I have with it is Hermit being like, there's nothing that can prove that people can have dreams that let them, see the future. But if she went back in time,
now that would make sense.
Which in a world where, yes, as they go on to explain, the chronophages exist and things do get their time eaten and go back in time, then I guess that there would be some establishment for why she would think that. But it is still such a weird thing of like, no, you can't see the future with your dreams. You can jump back through time, maybe, though.
Yeah, so they explain like, yeah, it's like when your powers first developed, you felt like somehow you were going backwards in time or something like that. So if we hypothesize that feeling indicated the true nature of those eighth-degree powers, then it's possible that you experienced some events in the near future and then came back to this point in time. Colloquially, you made a time leap. So she did it. She went back in time, and she keeps all of her memories. Specifically,
which is the unique thing about it.
Yeah.
So,
like, if the chronophage happens, everyone becomes who they were at that time. Weiss doesn't have his old man memories, he says. But Rebecca kept hers, and they kind of noted that they're all pretty awful. It's all really sad. And they're like,
I have trauma.
Well, they kind of also seem to indicate that the trauma's not as bad because she could kind of treat it like a dream. That I was like, it's not as much memories as it is a dream for her. But yeah, anyway, she's like, yeah, it's only a possibility of what happened will happen. But she's thinking like, all right, well, I guess what do we do? And she immediately realized like, oh shit, they captured Lobelia. Like she must already still be captured. So she pulls up Lobelia's YouTube channel. There's a funny moment where she contacts one of the other B-Cubers from the whole Gilst mission. And she's like, hey, what's up with Lobelia? It's like, oh, I haven't seen her in a while. But with these new B-Cuber policies that have rolled out recently, now you can't get ad revenue on bullying videos. So I think her career's kind of going down. And I was like, it's a weirdly on-point reference. Very good.
Logan Paul's really upset. Space Logan Paul is really upset.
Space Paul. So yeah, they don't like, hey, she hasn't updated her social media in a week. She hasn't updated her B-Cube in a week. They got her. So everything actually is going to happen. And she starts panicking because she's like, oh no, that means we can't beat Draken. But I can't just abandon her. And Pino's like, but she was kind of like a super bitch to you. And she's like, yeah, but we used to be friends.
That's a weird thing to make note of because Lobelia's made no indication of that at all. Mm-hmm. You would think for example, there was that time when she, tricked Rebecca into getting slimed that she would have made reference to that, saying like, oh, come on, for old time's sake or something like that, some hint of it. This seems to really come out of the blue, though.
Yeah.
So,
Shiki slams his hand on the table, though, and is like, all right, well, if she's Rebecca's friend, then she's my friend, too. So they're going to go rescue her. And they're like, yeah, we'll never win in a fair fight, but this isn't a fair fight because we have all the information about the future. And information is the best weapon possible. So Rebecca's like, all right, time for a strategy meeting. Before that gets...
you've never seen my chainsaw katana then.
That is the best weapon, actually. You know what? Information second. Your chainsaw katana is the number one. That it's chef's kiss.
It's also got a dragon living inside the hilt, so I can just flip it around and dragon comes out. So there you go.
Yeah. So Shiki, everyone gets knocked over because the first real big event has happened. Those three people invade the ship. And we get the exact same scene, like the exact same panel of the three of them walking in and saying, kill them all. Don't break anything that looks valuable, Maria. So they're like, oh, shit. I thought they came in because we invaded their ship. Well, looks like they were going to break in either way. And Shiki...
It's almost like they're villains.
And Shiki's like, so far, everything's following the future you saw. But guess what? From now on, it's going to be our future. Punch, punch.
Dun-dun! That's a very large sound effect that's on that.
It's huge.
Yeah. I mean, we basically explained all this stuff last week anyway, because it's an obvious enough, mechanic for it to be used. There's nothing really interesting that gets established in this, and it's very much treated like the cop-out that I think that we were expecting it was going to be. Of just like, yeah, it's going to be fine now. We don't even get any tension at all whatsoever in terms of how much Rebecca remembers or how much she's willing to believe that she actually traveled through time, because they just flat say, yeah, you probably jumped through time, so I guess we'll just use all that information you knew in order to win. So there you go.
I do like that we're seeing the same events, like exactly. Like I do like getting that same panel again, and like actually show like since the first time they were super fucking annoying lame clowns who got beaten, and then later on they're like, no, all these characters were actually super important. It does seem kind of cool that now we're actually going to get to see them. But I think the big takeaway I took out of this is like, is every future Eden Zero arc gonna have to write itself around the fact that Rebecca could just jump back in? Like, I understand she doesn't seem to really have full
she doesn't know
control
how to
of
activate it. So yeah.
But even then, it still feels like that's something you're going to constantly have to work around.
Admittedly, it does definitely explain why the hell Drakenjo was so hell bent on getting that ability.
But it doesn't explain why he was just willing to let her hang out in that room until the power developed. Like when he noticed she's using it, he's like, "Oh no, stop her!" I was like, "Wait, did you have no other precautions to her ability to immediately jump backwards in time?"
We couldn't put monitoring in the bathroom.
Yeah,
but why not?
Well, also just like, didn't you have like gas in her room or something like that? Like, I don't know, like someone constantly watching and punch her in the face if she tries to jump backwards in time. I was like, for an ability that undoes everything so completely and can happen almost instantaneously, I feel like that he knows about, I feel like he should have some defense to be like, oh, let's make sure that's there so she can't just go in a corner and jump backwards in time immediately.
What if he's like establishing security with someone and they're like, all right, so we're going to have her under 24/7 constant surveillance. The very moment that she develops this ability, we will know about it. We're not going to let her out of our sight. Anywhere that she can possibly go, we will keep an eye on her. All right? You're going to let her pee, right? I mean, we don't have to leave her alone. So what if she takes a bath? Are you just going to like watch her while she's naked? I mean, yeah, she can travel through time. It is the most dangerous ability. Yes, we are going to watch her while she bathes. And then Joe's like, stands up out of the bathtub. Like, that's fucked up that you would just watch someone while they're bathing like that. What's wrong with you?
This is very uncalled for. I'm disgusted. I have standards until I don't.
You're making me very angry. Kills that guy.
Breaks their neck, rips out their heart, and uses it to suffocate their child. Yeah, that's right. Sometimes I just kill people.
Oh man, I could have made money from that guy, but he pissed me off. All right. Let's talk about Mashle. It's the Quidditch chapter of Mashle. Mash Vandit in the game of brooms. Everyone is flying around playing their faked Quidditch game. And, oh boy, look at the things are heating up. And everyone's like, why is that one guy not flying? And Mash is just saying to himself, I told him I can't ride a broom. We actually get a flashback to the previous day. And Mash is delivering a freaking sermon to Finn. It's like, oh, this is important when you're making cream puffs. You got to use warm batter. That's how you get a mouthful of happiness. And Finn's like, wow, yeah, cool. Tom Knowles, who is the captain that recruited Mash, approaches him. Is like, hey, you should be in a duella match. You can't spell life without fire, so let's burn. He is a very stereotypical shonen manga jock, which is different from a Western media jock, because he's like, burning youth and all that stuff. So he's like, come on, let's go. We're going to compete and use our brooms and stuff. And Mash is like, I can't ride a broom. Oh, come on. I saw you in class. You blew everyone away. Come on. The game's tomorrow. Apparently he shouts so much that he loses his breath very easily, I think is the impression I get from him. And Mash is just gets talked into it, I guess, eventually. The captain eventually flies down to Mash because he's just been sitting there the entire time. He's like, are you even trying to spell fire with the stars of your dreams? And Mash is like, what? Didn't we promise to be number one? I didn't. You're not going lukewarm on me, are you? No. Remember the mighty bamboo. What are you talking? Bamboo can survive any climate. They're strong and supple. You need to bamboo it. And Mash just says, this guy's hopped up on drugs. You're standing in front of him, Mash. At this moment, Tom finally says, "All right, I haven't told you the rules." Seems important. He says you pass the ball through the ring for 10 points. It is exactly like quaffle-only Quidditch, basically. He says you can't use magic. All you can use is broom technique. And then he says, bamboo that can't fly are just sprouts. I think you know this, but I put my all into this game, and that's why I recruited you. I'm heading back out there. You can join me, and then an opposing player shoulder checks him flying in. And he's like, oh, I didn't do that on purpose.
Nick, I think he did it on purpose.
I think he did it on purpose. I think that Slytherin was playing dirty.
What? Why is the most evil house always cheating? The house we specifically organize all of our evil and racist members into always cheating.
Why are they all white? Well, there's. Sorry, I take that back. Blaze Zabidi is black in the movies, at least. Anywho, so the Lang dorm is taking a 40-point lead over the Adler dorm. Tom apparently has broken something from being shoulder checked, and he shouts over to the guy who hit him like, "Where is your sense of sportsmanship?" And the guy's like, "Who cares about that rot? All that matters is winning. Enjoy your nap, wusses." And so Tom's really upset. He's like, "Okay, look, they've got a big lead. There's not a lot of time left, but look, I wanted to listen, Mash. Winning isn't what matters. What matters is whether you give it your all." So Mash hunches down and jumps into the air and then stops in midair. And they're like, "Wait a minute, he's flying. What?" And zooms in on Mash, and he's like Yoshi air waddling.
Yeah.
So they're like, he's kicking his legs a lot. He is kicking his legs so powerful that he can hover in the air like a helicopter. And he declares, "Time to put a fork in them." That's just an odd boy.
I mean, how great would it have been if he had followed up? Like it just became his catchphrase, and he was like, "God is dead. Pass me the ball."
So they pass him the ball, and he's like halfway across the court. So they're like, "There's no way he's gonna score a goal here." He throws the ball like a rocket, and it flies through the hoop, and everyone's just like, and then one random girl in the audience is just like, "Sacre bleu!"
Yeah, I like, all right, one French student. By the way, did you see the one chart J.K. Rowling put out where she put out like where all the kids would go to magic school?
And there are 6 different European schools and one for all of South America.
There was like one for like 80% of Africa, and someone's like, that's like 200 different languages that would be going to one school.
Fuck's sake. So people are still like, well, time's nearly up, and they're down 40 points, so who cares? And then the ball arcs back towards Mash because he put spin on it. And I love the comment that someone makes, which is, "What the physics?" But yeah, he put a lot of spin on that ball, so it arced back towards him. And he just launches the ball continuously, approximately 50 times a second, and maxes out the scoreboard, and so they win. And people are like, "Oh, wow, not bad." So they get a silver coin. Mash got his first silver coin. Hooray! He did a sport, and he was rewarded for it.
My favorite part is he gets his silver coin. He's like, "It's not even really corn shaped." Like
the triangle.
I do love that thing. Like, it's not even really a coin when you think about it.
Harry Potter reference number 2, 3, because I've been talking about Quidditch this whole time. But whenever I imagined the money in Harry Potter, because it was specifically referred to as a golden galleon, I imagined a gold miniature ship with sails and stuff, because it's a galleon, and then of course in the movie it's just they're coins. So, oh, I don't know why they're called galleons though. Oh well. Finn congratulates Mash, and he says, "Thanks. I'm never doing that again." Tom approaches him and gives him a manly hug and says, "Thank you." And Mash is like, I'm really not good at dealing with this type of guy. But he was apparently interviewed after the game, and the quote says he credited his victory to his upperclassmen's exuberant encouragement. So that was nice of him. So there's a bizarre boy reading this who says the one from the entrance exams, and then he, I don't know, casts a hole through the newspaper over Mash's picture. And he's like, they risked failing for a perfect stranger. What naivete. They'll be next. Dun, dun, dun. This is okay.
How much ink is wasted on that newspaper, man? It's all in black, and then the words are white. Go on.
Yeah.
Or unless maybe trees in the magic world are naturally black. Like when you make paper, it's naturally black, so it's easier to make white ink. Maybe. This is lore.
Yeah. We gotta get something big and important out of this chapter, because it was just kind of a filler. So.
I mean, it's still funny, and I do like this new character. He is kind of charming, that he's like the stupidly high energy shonen protagonist character that usually Mash would be, but because Mash has to be like the straight man, he can never really make a ton of sense until it's time to be emotional. Like, he can never actually have a real conversation with Mash. He just has to have his one-sided screaming, like, we'll all be starflowers of the sky soon, with our friendship taking us to the top. Like,
I don't know what this guy is talking about.
Of course you do. We're all sunflowers shooting upwards, flying higher and higher.
Bamboo, Chris, is very different.
I know. So I enjoy it. I hope, like Cedric Diggory, he dies, and we just continue on.
Wow.
That's just like being harsh.
Anyway,
I didn't even read Goblet of Fire.
Mission Yozakura family. Mission 27, the Yozakura family made. I forgot about this character. And then she showed up and I was like, God damn it, this character's back.
Nick, so we haven't gotten to them yet, but there's 2 chapters this week that are definitely 100% on the way to ending. They are wrapping everything up.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel bad that it does not seem like Mission Yozakura family actually is now?
Well, we will get past stuff like this. So So Ayaka apparently is now the maid for the Yozakura family. Or she decides, I guess, halfway through to join them. There's a big shot of her in the maid outfit, and apparently her legs were momentarily much longer because her waist is about 2/3 of the way up her body. So no, 3/4. Yeah, that's a very long skirt. Anyway, so she's like, I'll be training you in assassination techniques while I'm working here. Oh, it was a wacky thing where Tayo gets to train while he's doing regular stuff, and it's a whole chapter dedicated to wacky training. Oh, the brother-in-law shows up. He's mad at him at the end.
I love that we've been talking about it. Like, oh man, it's nice when this series gets away from just the nonsense stuff about a character who's obsessed with Tayo or Mutsumi, and it isn't just some chapter where, hey, Tayo, you used to do a normally banal thing, but now it's a death trap to train your spy skills. And as soon as we got done with like the interesting arc, I was like, oh no, we still got more of those left. I've got ideas in the tank. And like, you want to just be like, idea. You have an idea in the tank, and you just keep cycling it through over and over.
Anyway, moving on. Samurai 8. Hey, remember Nanashi? They showed up last time. Isn't that nice? It's nice to see her again.
Good for them. Nanashi, I think, was non-gendered.
They noted that they never did actually establish, I think, directly.
I would say the last time I remember, I don't think they were established with the gender, but
it said that they were biologically male, but they seemed to indicate that they acted like a woman. I don't remember. Anyway, but yeah, you're right. Thinking back to it, Nanashi kind of didn't actually give a proper answer about what gender they were. And then Hachimaru was like, if you got a penis, you're a boy. Anyway, so an interesting thing that I realized is that back when we first met Nanashi, they used like their hands as like kind of to talk to them. They're part of their key holder now, which is a cool development. Carry on from that. So yeah, there's the like animalistic head in the middle, and then there's two heads on the sides, which represent the left and right. So there you go. Nanashi has the ability to send forth an astral projection to spy and also interact with things and such. So they send that ahead. We go straight into at his headquarters. He is bowing down to the skull thing that we were indicated was a bad thing, and I think the big thing
is that not Harmonia Justice, the best character in Death Note?
Definitely looks like it, actually. Yeah.
I'm in this series now.
I believe it was established when Fumio showed up before Dharma and Hachimaru what this was. Anyway, Ada's bowing down to it, and they're like, there's a mantless box, a thorn planet, locker ball of Fumio. And Ada's like, to think it was so close all along. You must go at once. Yes, master. Cool. The go-overs, he's brought Hachimaru's key before all of the other clones. And Anne's like, what have you done to Hachimaru? And he's like, do not worry. Samurai do not die so easily. He will be useful to me, though not as useful as you. Okay. And then he's like, absorb the power from the key. And then take Kaku's samurai soul. Use it as a weapon. They're like, yeah, okay. And it's such a sad little moment. Because Anne's like, I will stop them. And she goes and grabs a sword, and she can't pull it out of the scabbard, because that was the thing that was established at like the beginning of the series, that you can't pull a samurai sword out unless you're that samurai. So he grabs her by the throat and says, behave yourself if you want your life spared. You're going to spare her life anyway. You want to use, you've said that you want, never mind. So they all hook into Hachimaru's key thing, and they're all connecting to it, and they're all going to sap his power out. And now the space where we are lacking will be filled. The 7 keys will be whole at last. Goodbye, Hachikaku. But at that moment, Nanashi's astral projection appears before Hachimaru in his cell. Says, hey, are you all right? Hey, it's me. It's me, number 2 in the rankings. And Hachimaru's like, really? How did you get here? And Nanashi's like, I used my samurai form. Oh, right, I'm a samurai now. It's like, aw. And they say, I've got a samurai name. It's written with the characters for 7 desires, so you still read it as Nanashi. And of course, Hachimaru now knows about this because of the story about Anne's brother. And Nanashi says, children without names like me all look up to this name. It's been the way of things in my town for years. And then they say, hey, are you all right? I promised to meet you in space, but now you're without underwear and in big trouble. And Hachimaru's like, what are you talking about? Remember, you told me that not having your katana was like not wearing any underpants. So making callbacks to something that happened 40 chapters ago. That was the only time I showed up. Sorry.
Also, it wasn't really that great of a quote at the time, so...
It really wasn't.
Anyway, kind of feel like I just made things awkward. I'm going to go. Like, wait, no, save me.
But Hachimaru's like, look, Aga's taken... Oh, wait, much more than that. It's taken everything from me. And now she's like, conveniently, I have heard about everything that's happened in the plot so far. I know all about that stuff. Apparently. Don't know how.
I had a very exciting journey. Had we continued for another, 7 volumes, you probably would have heard about it.
I would have been your favorite character, probably. So now she says, look, this time it's my turn to help you, so let's get you out of here and we'll go save Princess Anne together. And Hachimaru's like, well, look, I'm a little attached to the wall, and I can't get out of here. And Ashi says, I thought you said you were sick of being cooped up inside. And Hachimaru's like, well, I have, but we're up against a guy that even my master couldn't be. I have. And Ashi says, you told me yourself. If you do not draw your blade from its sheath, you will never know how fine it can cut. Now that was a cool quote. That was a good one to call back to.
It'd be great. Follows that up with Much like not having underpants or something, correct? Look, I really don't remember the quote. I just remember how to do it underpants to be kind of weird.
So they free Hachimaru from his restraints, and Hachimaru's like, "Why are you doing all of this?" And Nashi's just like, "Because you're my friend." Like, come on, you idiots. But Nashi says, "You are my first friend, and you gave me my dream, my calling as a samurai. To always help you is my calling. You want to be like Fudamyo, the shooting star, don't you? To be the next shooting star who makes wishes come true. I believe in you. You were the one who made me think this way. You were the one who granted my wish to be a samurai. You are Fudamyo to me." Ah, God damn it! Like, you still have it in you, man. Like, come on, just do more of this. This is really sweet and nice. And, think about this. Hachimaru reflects back to when actual Fudamyo showed up before him and said, like, mumbo jumbo and everything like that. And it's like, remarked on Dharma's nature, saying, "Dead cat or living samurai, it is up for you to decide, and so is what you showed others. I exist in a paradoxical state, both living and dead in a sense. The answer lies in how you choose to view it. The key to opening a box that is held shut by your assumptions is always found within your own grasp. Your possibilities are as vast as the infinite universe." And Hachimaru starts to regenerate, and it's like, I get it now. Thank you, Nanashi. You helped me realize. And he's not actually he's not regenerating. He's going into a locker ball, basically. And Nanashi starts to panic, but Hachimaru says, "Don't worry. I decide what form I should take. Just like Fudamyo, whether I'm dead or alive is something I can decide for myself." Meanwhile, all the other clones ready to get their power, but all the spaces aren't filling. What's going on? They're assembling themselves. So
I feel like I'm supposed to understand what's happening in the final panel, but
if only there had been if only there'd been an explanation, some sort of exposition about how this works. That was what we needed in this chapter.
I hope the chapter is nothing but that. They're like, how these weird energy cubes normally work is gravity pulls them together, and as such, let us explain what gravity is. Like, no, stop.
Like one of the clones just like, "Guys, I don't get what's going on. Can you explain?" And they're like, "God, number 4, you're such a dumbass. You're always the stupid one."
All right, dumb Kaku, let's go talk about this.
It's not even a name. All right. Yeah, so I mean, every time we get a chapter like this out of Samurai 8, I just think, God, we could have, if they were consistently like this, then you could actually enjoy this series. Uh-huh. But as is, like, even though this is a better than usual chapter, it's still not great, because it really kind of feels like it's in a context where it's not allowed to shine as much as it could, when you consider all the stuff that has led directly up to this moment. Especially with Nanashi literally just like, "By the way, I'm a samurai." So
yeah, so like, this is one of the ones I mentioned. Samurai is definitely ending, because this is Hachimaru has just unlocked his ultimate super technique.
He's got to become a super samurai.
Yeah, so it's kind of good, I guess, that it. Look, I'm gonna be sad if Samurai 8 ends, because it's one of the highlights of the podcast every week.
Oh, absolutely,
just shitting all over it. But at that said, it was also still just a really good chapter, and like a reminder that Kishimoto can still write compelling characters and have good moments. And this was a chapter that didn't bother having to spend time about the world. It just talked about kind of characters and their arcs. So it's kind of sad and bittersweet, because it's like, oh, there could have been a good series here. It's just not all together.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Zipman, Nick. Zip.
I mean, there is a pretty cool fight that unfolds between Kagami and the Sun Wukong zip suit guy, who has a power pole, of course. They exchange fights, but they also exchange words as they're, going through like powered up forms and stuff, because the Wukong guy is like, hey, I'm way more powerful than you. And so, Zipman powers up to its, demonic form like we saw at the end of the Death Tower arc fight thing. And he mentions like, I've heard that, you are that it's difficult to sustain that. But Kagami's like, well, if I'm gonna stop you guys, I don't care what happens to me. And Wukong's like, well, why are you doing that? Why are you trying so hard? He's like, because there's someone I need to save. Oh, okay. Well, if that's your motivation, I mean, I've got someone I want to save too. See, I've got a little brother outside of Japan and he's sick, but I don't think I should die for my brother because if my brother lives and I die, what would he think? So I'm going to live even if it means others die. Your philosophy is wrong. But Kagami's like, whatever the reason, it is never right to sacrifice others. And they could do this big clash. Wukong powers up in the middle. Looks like he's going to overpower Kagami. It's like, if you keep on worrying about others, you won't be able to save the person most important to you. And Kagami's like, that kind of thinking is not allowed. The only thing I can sacrifice is myself. And he pushes back and he headbutts the zipper, which earns him the victory. It's a cool exchange that I'm sure would have been a really cool fight if it had been given more time towards the end of the series instead.
Mm-hmm. I really kind of
the guy in the Wukong suit comes out and is like, well, at this rate, you'll eventually break. And Kagami sure enough falls to one knee after the battle, but he's like, just 3 more. And then we get radio in. It's like, hey, this is Henmi. Remember me? Very well established character. Your conversation just now, he's definitely wrong, but you're wrong too, Kaname. If you sacrifice yourself for the boss, can you imagine how your brother and China would feel? In the past few months of working together, I understood that you're just like the boss said. You're an idiot who can only see what's in front of him. So I'll use my strength to make you see that we're here. You're here. We're here too. You're not alone. We're right here with you. And I have a zip suit.
Yeah. So I know China. She has a zip suit as well. I know the
driver girl's there too.
Who the fuck is this other guy? I do not know.
He's one of the guys who is working for Koshiro.
I don't even remember that there was another person. I thought it was just the truck driver. I legitimately, at the end of this chapter, I was like, did we meet this person before?
So yeah. The 3 of them, all of them except the truck driver, have these zip suits of their own. The truck driver has some sort of bizarre-looking gun. So you can clearly see just like, and here's stuff that would have happened if the series had actually, been picked up and lasted and stuff like that. Because Jesus Christ, this gave me huge Takamagahara flashbacks. Like, you remember the end of that series was like the last chapter is just like, and his love interest had a special power too that was really important. So just this power development is coming out of nowhere because like, we gotta end the series now. Sorry,
Yeah.
And they're telling Kagami, come on, go to Steelix, go to Koshiro. So that's presumably where the series is going to end in like 2 chapters, I would guess. So.
Yep. All right. Let's talk about We Never Learn, Nick. Chapter 150. X equals ellipses. A pizza bet. So we get our color page. It's several years later, an undetermined number of years later, but less than 4 because characters are still in university. So presumably like 2 or 3 maybe. We get our big color spread of all the characters, or all the girls rather. And, hey, the maid cafe is closed for a private event. So Yueka shows up, and it's a welcome home party for Aruka. So everyone's there. We get little small snippets of everybody kind of having their own things. We see Sekijo is still there. It seems, I don't know if they established that she's roommates with Ogata, but they go to the same college as kind of shown before.
They clearly hang out a lot together because they're in seemingly the same classes and also they have lunch together. Yeah.
So they have this whole big event there. Everyone basically has like their small thing. So Ogata's like, I get to learn new things every day, and what could be more fun than that? Just like you promised. And Fumino's there. She gets
There's even a little bit with Yuiga's buddies
Yeah.
too. Like Omori is like got this weird new jacket. He's like, "Oh, you noticed? Yes, since I'm starting college now." And then there's someone's like, "It's not a good look. Tell him it's not a good look."
I kind of think it's a good look, but whatever. Firmino's like, yeah, I got to go to an observatory near the university. I get to like actually use the telescope there. It's really good. And Yuiga's like, oh well, you've got to find your mother's star. She gives him like a big thumbs up on it. Ashumi comes by and she's been drinking a little bit, but she's like, yeah, I'm buried under homework these days, so when I get a day off, I really gotta decompress. And she's like, you know what? It's pretty tough, but compared to the fear of losing my dream, this is nothing. And then Kirisu has a butt joke. I don't know why it's there. She says she wanted to always try out a maid costume or something.
Miharu says that.
Miharu wants to. I don't know why
Kirisu into it, I guess. Yeah.
And he's like, oh, hey, I heard that the school's figure skating team that you started coaching actually won like the regional championship. And she's like, yeah, I didn't really do anything. It's the athletes who really worked that hard. And at that point, Ogata has apparently been smelling alcohol enough that she's gotten drunk off of it. So she starts.
I do think that they established that in a previous chapter, just how much of a lightweight she is. So,
yeah, so she starts getting like kind of rubbing on Yuiga, and basically all the girls kind of start grabbing him, and then Iruka shows up and she sees Yuiga surrounded by all these girls. So we cut to that evening. Iruka's walking with Yuiga down by the river. He's like, hey, it was just a misunderstanding about all that. She's like, I haven't seen you in months. All this time, been dying to see you. I was so excited last night I couldn't sleep, but now I don't know if I feel lonely or doubtful. I don't even really know why I'm upset. And Yuiga's like, well, I feel the same. So he grabs her hand and he slides a ring on her finger and says, so, Iruka, will you marry me? And she's speechless. She's like, this ring. He's like, oh, I made it myself. It's not professional. My boss taught me how to, and I managed.
He was talking about metalworking early in the chapter.
Yeah. So he's like, oh, but once I start working, I'm going to buy you a much nicer one. This one's just kind of a placeholder. So can I have your answer? And a bunch of fireworks shoot up into the air. And she says, yes. And we cut back to the school festival. Haven't you heard? When they shoot off the first firework on the night of the festival, if a boy and girl are touching when it explodes, they'll be bound by fate. And we see that it was Iruka who was the fireworks girl all along. And that's the end of the series, Nick. This was one of my favorite. I think we didn't really know when it was coming to an end, so we didn't really have time to do like a retrospective or anything like that. But I think still in the gauge of the series we've discussed, especially recently, I think this is one of the better ending
What page are you looking at, Chris, by the way?
Nick, I'm on page 22, which is the only one I need to see.
Okay, so you haven't looked to the left, to the opposite page.
Oh,
You're
yeah,
just like,
I see that.
I'm a page 99 of 100. Don't need to read page 100.
Yeah, who has time to read the last page of a book?
So, rumor broke out last week and was confirmed this week by this last page and a note directly from Susui Sensei on the ensuing page that this apparently is not the canon end of We Never Learn. Because there is no canon end of We Never Learn. There are going to be concluding story arcs for each of the 5 main love interests, and Iruka was only the first. The next one is going to be Ogata, and then apparently Fumino and Asumi, and finally Kirisu. I'm not happy with this development because I think that it is a disservice to whatever you write in each individual story. I know that this is just kind of the way that like dating sim games with this kind of setup are done, because that is how you have like player protagonist attachment is like, hey, here's these potential options for you to pursue. Choose your favorite, go after them. Hey, you had a happy ending together. Wasn't that nice? And also you get some replayability out of it. It's like, hey, why don't you go check out what another girl's like? Follow her route instead. See what kind of romantic stuff you get to go up to and stuff like that. But the main appeal, I think, is the fact that it's like, oh, you get to choose your favorite girl and you go after them and stuff like that. And being a harem romantic comedy series, as We Never Learn is, there have been, of course, plenty of discussions amongst the fan of, oh, who's the best girl? Which girl should you end up with? Which one do you want to see him end up with? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that this is a cop-out because then you're like, well, just choose which one is your favorite. It's like, that's not an author writing a story. That is an author writing potential stories and then leaving it up to the reader to interpret which one is the true story. And I think that that is gutless, and I don't like it. Now, we don't know for certain exactly how this is going to play out. I think you and I, Chris, have both said when people have asked us about it, and we've said on Twitter, like, if it turns out to be like there are a couple of chapters dedicated to each of these options, then it'll read like they are, alternative endings, and there is a canon ending. That I think would be preferable, just in the sense that there is a thing that an author decided to do and they wrote it, but here's a little something else in case you wanted to see something different, as opposed to, I get to keep on writing this series for 9 more months, basically, because it's been 10 chapters because it's been like 10 chapters since Iruka actually confessed to Yuiga.
Yeah. So
if you go that far back and say that's the branch at chapter 1, at the end of chapter 140, like, and then just like a different girl confesses to him, or there's a lead up to a different girl confessing to him, or a lead up to them realizing their feelings for each other, and the branch is at Iruka's confession, that's 10 chapters. And also there's, all the stuff that came before that seems to be kind of leaning in Iruka's direction. But anyway. And that is a long time to spend on a series to just be like, and here's another ending, and here's another ending, and here's another ending. Because it feels like everything from this point forward is just like, okay, now we'll see how this girl wound up with Yuiga. And also, it takes away from the impact of the fact that one of the things that Yuiga did to realize how he felt about Iruka was reflecting and communicating with his dead father, apparently, and basically realizing that he had always loved her. And that doesn't have as big an impact if you say, like, but here's how he could have ended up with someone else then. Because it's like, that's not romantic to me, It'll always be like, okay, so then did he just always love these 5 girls romantically? Or there was, because it wasn't a matter of like, okay, here's how he fell in love with Iruka. That's not the story that was told. This was the story of how he realized he was already in love with her. So has he always just been? So at this point in the story, when Iruka confessed to him, if you're going to do 5 equally weighted entries of girls that Yuiga could have ended up with, that means that he, at the point in the story where he took the test and passed it, that he was already in love with all 5 of them. And it definitely takes away from it to just find out, like, well, the thing that decided that he was going to end up with them was just which of them confessed to him first. I don't know. That doesn't ring true to me. Now, as far as going forward with this, I'm going to reserve judgment on the way that each thing plays out on its own merits. I'm sure that we are going to still have good times ahead with this. I think that the story of how Yuiga ends up together with Asumi could be cute. I think the story of how he ends up together with Fumio could be cute. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Ogata, because she really kind of fell off towards the end of this series. And we're saving the best for last with Kirisu. Oh, no! But in theory, I don't like this development. But I guess it's what we're going to have to live with.
So I think that there's a lot being kind of said about this that's somewhat overblown. I'm only kind of half joking when I said I think this was a pretty good final chapter for We Never Learn, because I do believe this is the last chapter of We Never Learn as we know it. And let me just sort of explain. We're getting these side stories, and the chapter does end with like end of route 1 of 5. I think that this is all potentially something that has sort of decided, because I know even Susui's like, I've been planning this forever, and I think that's a load of shit. I think there's enough clues that suggest that Iruka was the person planned, and there's so many butthurt people about the fact that it was Iruka, that it was something
That
where
it was
they
the
were,
black girl.
that they were like, let's
Brown girl. Sorry.
yeah, let's change it to anybody could win it. So look, obviously, we're gonna need to see where these chapters really go, but in my mind, I can't imagine, because there's stuff that was done in this Iruka thing. Like if you even want to go back to the start of the Shimmering Ebony Mermaid Princess arc, if you start exactly there, it's after Iruka's confession to Yuiga. Mm-hmm. That first chapter is once they're at the snow cabin. So if
there's the conversation between Iruka and the other girls where they're all just get out in the open that they love Yuiga and stuff. So
yeah, it's essentially, it's like, hey, if that's supposed to be the branch point, I mean, who knows? We maybe the next chapter starts and it is right after the test. It'd be kind of weird because the arc naming convention isn't there, but the arc's name actually changed halfway through anyway, so it doesn't really matter that much. But if that's where the branch starts, then perhaps. But there's so many details that have been done throughout this arc that it would boggle my mind if they bothered to do every single one. Like, every single arc from here forward, if it goes after that branch off point, is going to have to address that Yuiga is going to turn down Iruka. Like, every one of them is going to have to deal with the fact that, like, I guess 3 of the other ones are going to have to deal with the fact that Ashumi's going to have to resolve that her feelings just won't be returned. And 3 of the other ones are going to have to resolve that Ogata's feeling. Like, if all of them are going to address the fact that the other girls are going to let this go, and they're going to settle that, and they're all going to deal with some kind of closure with Yuiga and his father, and they're all going to deal with these all different small things, and they're all going to have an epilogue at the end that show where these characters are 2 years later, where he marries the girl. Like, if they do every single one
somehow
of those,
on one of the endings, like, it's just completely changed the way like, even in one, because like in this one it like establishes that like, oh yeah, Fumino's in an observatory, and like somehow in like the Asumi chapter it's like, yeah, we haven't seen Fumino since the zombies invaded.
Yeah, like, you're just gonna be like, oh, no one's spoken to Asumi since the incident. And they just like, they cut over to a wanted poster, and she's got an eye patch, like a cigar and a Tommy gun. You're like, oh man, some stuff went down with Asumi in this route. Like, it's one of those things where, like, if you're gonna keep doing those every single time, then I'm gonna be disappointed. One, because then you are trying to really separate the fact that this was the one ending. But also, that's just kind of bad writing if I'm gonna have to experience the same plot points 4 to 5 times, essentially. But I don't think that's the case. I think there's just been enough clues. The fact that the anime ending suggested Iruka, or implied that Iruka was going to be one of the girls. The fact that Iruka was the first girl to have her story done. Like, these things to me just suggest that she is the canon ending, and the rest of these are any ending you want. But any ending could be canon if you want. Even I don't have a canon ending. And to me, that feels like speak to say, like, oh, hey guys, don't take our volume sales at the very end. You can get your Kirasu chapters, don't you worry.
Have Somersault makes the point that it's entirely possible that the realization and confession, all that stuff, could happen at different points in Yuiga's life, and that could definitely affect the way that the story plays out. Which is an interesting idea, and it would be a good way to actually introduce some variation. But I think just in general, having this whole structure of like the long drawn out process of like realizing the love and all that stuff, it's going to start to ring hollow after a few rotations. So maybe increase the pace a little bit if we're going to go with this. But we'll see how it plays out. And maybe we'll actually, but hey, this gives us also four more chances to get a definitive Seikujo was definitely in love with Ogata.
I think, I'm not going to say if it doesn't happen, it's done, but I think if because the next arc is the Ogata arc, if it's going to happen, it's probably in there.
Mm-hmm.
So
If we're gonna get a definitive one, it's probably gonna happen.
I hope
there.
the next chapter opens up with just like Sekija.
So I just realized I'm in love with Ogata.
Really, like, there's a small part of me that wants it to happen, just so you get like the double way and be like, "Fuck, we are doing these any Indies can be canon bullshit. Fuck it, I owe Chris a pizza."
All right. Dr. Stone, Z equals 142, world power. Big thing that we do have to kind of increase the pace after having that discussion. And there are some things that do happen in this chapter, but it's planning. So they make a roadmap, which is actually a globe, in terms of what they're planning to do, because something important is established. In order to make a fucking rocket ship and go to the goddamn moon, they can't just go with a crew of 150 people working on this. They need way more resources. They need way more development. So in order to do that, they're going to actually go around and revive more civilizations in order to do that. And they're going to go to places that are rich in certain resources. So they're like, all right, so this place in the Pacific is the Rubber City. This place in Australia is Aluminum City. And the part that really got me was that Asia mainland is Math City. Not sure what that means exactly.
I think the idea is supposed to be technology, but I guess that's where the equations and stuff are. Like, you'd have to go to a place that I presume has done space travel, and if you're already doing America for corn, then going with either the Soviet or the Chinese space programs would be the best second one to go with.
Because they are actually going to revive people. So, they're going to revive people, establish new cities, get more stuff. And so, yeah, that's what they're planning on doing. Then they can take flight. But some people bring up, hey, there was that whole thing that Gen mentioned before about the upper limit on societal groups. Dunbar's number of 150. And if we go around establishing civilizations again, we're going to just blow past that. And Yo brings up the point, yeah, what if there are some real bad dudes mixed in with the people we revive? And Ryusui's like, well, once we establish law and order in the new cities, the people will accept it, and everything should stabilize. And Yuki's like, well, it's going to be rough initially, though. And Tsukasa says, that could be a problem, but villains won't be allowed to ruin things. It'll be fine. And a crowd of people just kind of stare at him, and they're like, but it'll be fine. And they're like, yeah, you're right, Tsukasa. Yeah, don't kill me. So, yeah. So they're like, all right, so the first thing that they're going to do is sail across the Pacific to go to North America. Ryusui's like, all right, good job. It's going to be like Columbus going to the next continent, and whoever spots and lands first gets a 100,000 Drago prize. And Tsukasa's like, what are you guys talking about? And reporter lady, whose name I forget, I should have probably familiarized myself with her after she had that, romance ship tease moment with Tsukasa, pulls Ryusui aside. It's like, oh, he's talking about Doraemon. Yeah, that's what. She pulls him aside and says, hey, listen, I'm going to be posing very sexily during this very serious conversation. Just ignore that, however. Ignore that. Look, Boichi gets distracted, okay? So that's why I look like this. Anyway, so she says, listen, Tsukasa, hates privilege and all that stuff, and you, are the embodiment of that, so, behave around him and everything. And Ryusui is just kind of waits and lets her, speak her mind and stuff. And she's like, I mean, I know you're not as bad as the rumors painted you and stuff. But Ryusui just says to that, well, either way, too bad. You may hate me with a passion, but I love you. And she's like, fuck? And he's like, I love all women. So that includes you. Men too. Bye, Icon Ryusui. What a king. So she says, you can't just control everyone with money. But Ryusui says, money is no more than a handy tool created by and for civilization. It doesn't exist to control people. It's there to focus our hearts and minds. And everyone combining their strengths like that unlocks humanity's full potential. Am I wrong? I mean, there's a lot of evidence to say that you are a little inaccurate in this day and age, what with the oligarchy and the schism between different classes of people. Anyway, we're all going to work together and go to the moon. Woo! Money! All right. And their first stop is America because they need to create a tremendous amount of alcohol in order to revive all the people with their current method. And for that, they need corn. And that's why they're going to America. Hooray!
Yeah, it's a chapter. I'm actually excited. I mean, I think this is a fun thing. I'm not super excited at the idea of a Dr. Stone chapter to hype us up about corn. Not because I think corn's boring, but like the corn syrup industry is kind of not a great industry in America. But I guess if that's what we're represented by, let's go with it. I trusted Nagaki to still make it exciting. So there's that.
They get to America and they just come across like a group of about 15 people that haven't been petrified, and 5 of them are pushing a truck together, and one's kicking a rock back and forth as they run.
Also, I was like, so is the Dr. Stone world not technically Earth, or does Inagaki not own a map? Because I don't know what they're doing. Like, I was like, did something happen to California, or what's going on?
Don't worry about it. They're going straight to Las Vegas. It's fine.
I do like that Las Vegas is on there. Death March. Death March.
Chainsaw Man! Chapter 61 News Reporter. People are dead now because of Chuanji ripping through them with their swords.
Okay, just so people don't... I realize now, it has been 3,000 years. There would have been some changes. That makes sense then. Sorry, go ahead.
There's the older man who is one of Denji's bodyguards, shows up and he's like, so they're away from Chuanji, huh? Okay, you guys go take care of the dolls in the department store. I'm going to handle this. And he says that to the violence devil and Kurose. Or Kurose. And so the mouth hair devil girl is like, I don't know Japanese. And she makes a hole with her ponytail and is like, oh, you've got contracted devils of claw, knife, needle. That's pretty dangerous, but you're no one special. Let's gobble them up, girls. And we cut away from there. Chuanji, of course, had previously just shown up in front of Denji. There's some cool martial arts that happens as she just completely destroys everyone around there. She starts by kicking Denji in the face so hard that they're both carried upwards an entire body length into the air. And then she lands on the ground between people and like breakdance fights to knock some others out. There's a guy with weird earrings who has octopus devil, and he uses that to summon a cloud of ink, tries to sneak attack around behind Chuanji, and she just spin kicks and knocks him out in one blow to the chin. Seems ready to slash his throat or stab him in the face or something like that. But old dude from before shows up in front of them, like immediately. And it's like, hey, it's been a long time. And he's got 2 of her girlfriends under his arms with a knife to them. So she freezes. Denji starts to get up, and old guy instructs him and Power to restrain the 2 that he's brought and says if they try anything, kill him. So Denji's like, Power, get up. And Power immediately gets up and is like, I was playing dead. Are you impressed? And I looked back and it was like, oh yeah, she's like the one person in that group that didn't get hit at all. She just decided to fall unconscious, I guess. So Chuanji goes and sits down. Old guy sits down next to at the opposite side of the table. They speak and just kind of have like a casual looking conversation. And she's like, hey, where are the other 2 fiends? And he says, they got away from me. Public safety and the police have the area locked down. They're going to get caught soon. And once public safety cleans up the dolls downstairs, I'm going to take you in, so don't move a muscle. And she says, this isn't like Mad Dog Kishibe. You've gotten crafty. Did being collared turn you into a real dog? And he's like, oh, I'm past 50 now. He holds out a notepad to her. It says, Makima is listening. And he's like, yeah, I lost my fangs a long time ago. And you just, having a conversation while the notepad says the important stuff, like, if you do what I say, I'll let you go. I'll guarantee your safety. I'm going to kill Makima. We'll tell you everything if you'll help. And he's holding it in just such a way that Denji and Power can't read it. And she says, on the news, there's this reporter who's my type. I've watched that program every day. I'd even buy the magazine she was in, things like that. One day, she was exposed for lying about her age. After that, it was like the floodgates opened. Exposés on her ex-boyfriends, power yawns. She kept appearing on the morning news regardless, but I stopped watching that program. It wasn't that the reporter had changed. It was my brain that changed. The secret to leading a happy life in this world is that ignorance is bliss. Kishibe, be a good dog and keep your collar on. Some advice from your former buddy. And I think that's the guy that she punched out, that she kicked out before.
No, that's the brother. It's a different guy. That's the brother.
That's the brother. You're right. I got confused because I thought he had earrings.
And the guy that got knocked out before, people are saying that was the one who killed the middle brother as well.
Okay. So younger brother shows up with a gun pointed straight at Denji. Kishibe kicks Denji in the shoulder to get them out of the way, and the gun hits the window. The girl that Denji was holding gets free, pins him to the ground. She calls out to Chuanji and Kishibe start fighting and punching each other.
It's a cool chapter. I mean, I do like that this guy kind of has more to him. I mean, he's a side enough character that I'm like, next chapter, his head could just slop off in the first panel. I'd be like, that makes sense. But it is cool to see. I do love the continuing build to this idea that there is just I mean, we've seen it, but that there's just this dread even in the organization about Makima.
But she's fine. She's fine. Yeah, she's cool. She's nice. Yeah. I do also like the continuing thing that like all the intelligent characters keep on dying, and it's just stupid ass Denji and Power who are the ones who live because they're just too crazy to be killed. So anyway, Promised Neverland. Chapter 170. Hey, so we get whole thing. It says essentially that when Peter Rattray approached Rebecca, or Isabel rather, not Rebecca. Rebecca's not important. Chapter 170's title is together, by the way, and was like, do you want to escape this endless hell? That she was like, you know what? I decided, fuck you. Because she's like, he's just using the idea of my freedom as bait and flaunting fear over me. So fuck him. And so from the very moment that she agreed to do this, she was like, my children are going to come back, so I'll do this so that I can help them when they do. Apparently she's been planning this the whole time. She approached the other moms when she was told to, help them out, and was like, hey, I'm going to overthrow all this. I'm not going to let anyone rule over me anymore. If you want to report me, sure, go ahead. You will probably get a promotion for it, but you're just going to continue living in this inescapable hell. If you want to escape from it, stand with me and I'll show you something very interesting. And so they did, and that's why they're all pointing their guns at Rattray in the present. And he's like, ah! And even Emma, of course, is shocked. She looks at Isabel and says, "Mom," but she hesitates, and Isabel thinks to herself, you still call me Mom. You and Lanny, Yvette, and everyone, after all I did to you. And Rattray's like, you betrayed me, Isabella! And Isabella says, yes. Isn't it obvious? When she puts it that way, it's like, you were a tremendous dumbass to ever think that she was on your side. Why would you make her your last resort? So Isabel thinks to herself, it would be great if we could return to the time when, the children knew nothing and just say, hey, or if they, I wish I could say, I'm sorry, welcome home, I missed you, good job, you're amazing. If I could say that and hug them dearly. But, and she turns to Emma and instead says, what's wrong, Chris? That's not what she says.
Just, as I'm reading through the chapter again, I guess like I'm kind of ahead, but just the idea that Peter Rattray is like surrounded. And he's like, ah! And then just
he does, as I like to put, he pulls, as I like to put it, a light Yagami, where If you remember the ending of Death Note, where Light is just like, ah, and it's, all of his plants are crumbling around him. I know, I'll just run.
He just screams and runs in a direction, and everyone's like, I don't know what to do.
Which in the anime is very weird because they're in a fucking warehouse and you like, man, just open the door and nobody stops him and stuff.
I mean, in this one, Peter Rattray frees his hands off panel and then grabs a gun from somebody and.
Oh no, let's all stand still for the next 3 seconds. Oh, he got my gun.
It's my greatest thing. It's just him being like, me lose to damn food. Just booking down the hallway. And like, while it's happening, my mind's flashing back to like 2 months ago. I was like, I think Peter Rattray could be a really interesting final villain for the Promised Neverland. Why can't this one have alternate endings where to get better things? Like,
and now it's time for the Ray ending.
Like, thank God, the only ending I want.
That's right, it's the ending where I, #Ray, confess my feelings to Yuiga-kun.
I'm the fireworks girl.
Who are you? It's me, #Ray. I've been in school with you this whole time, gazing at you longingly while wearing my schoolgirl uniform.
Truly, this is the romance for the ages.
You thought you were going to get your Kirisu ending? No, that's creepy. What are you talking about?
That's lame. Like, you could have the stunningly...
Don't you want to have all of this?
The stunningly anointing baby memories princess ending.
X equals the stunningly annoying baby. All right. There's some stuff. Isabella says that she doesn't expect Emma to forgive her because she doesn't forgive herself. She says, you don't have to call me mom. But when Emma looks at her, she actually views like young Isabella from when she was, a kid at the Gracefield house. So they're all on the same side. And Emma just says, hey, thanks, mom. And yeah, Ratchet's like, no! That's him running, by the way.
Oh my God.
I feel, to go back to the Yagami Light reference, when that happened in Death Note, I was like, ha! Look at him. Look at that pathetic asshole. Because it's like, here's the guy who's been in control the whole time. And you're supposed to look at the horrible things that he's done over the course of the series and think, that guy deserves to suffer and die. And I don't care about Peter Rattray. He came into the series so late. He did nothing to establish himself as a character that you would want to hate. He had the one scene where he broke the kid's fingers. And I know that he has been background responsible for all this stuff, but it's not something that has been consistently established through the series. And I don't have any emotional connection to him to have the sense of Schadenfreude that this is supposed to evoke. So, yeah.
All right, let's talk about Black Clover, page 242, Humans and Evil. And I want to note, a lot of people hated this color spread. I absolutely love it. I love all these colors together. I'm an animal. When I was a child, I painted my room with neon blue and neon green stripes. So I like trash colors together, and that's just the kind of person I am. Deal with it.
I don't like Yuno's green.
I love it.
Because it's very plain. But I like the rest of it.
I love it. Favorite cover page ever. Anyway, it doesn't work. He uses a bunch of gravity and makes like a space-time hole and just blocks it.
Not even establishing what we're talking.
It's like they know it. It's the same. You remember it's happened 3 weeks running now. He's too strong, and he beats him, and he kills Gouch, it looks like. And Asta goes full demon, it looks like, and it seems as though he's actually lost himself to the demon. There was a moment where he's
going six-tailed. Yeah.
Yeah, he's activated demon powers previously, but noted that he has a strong enough heart to control them and do what's right, and that's what it means to be human. But at the end of the chapter, it looks as though Gouch has been stabbed through the chest. There's a small flashback to somebody saying, "My dear son," and potentially that's Asta's parent. And then Asta is in his full, he's gone further demon and does not seem like he has any semblance of his humanity currently.
There's also a thing that establishes that Gauch is actually in danger because his power is so strong that he has actually forced Rouge to dissipate.
Mhm.
Is just overwhelmed by that. So, establishing like, yes, Gauch's life could be in immediate danger here because there's no undo button immediately readily available.
Yeah.
Well done in that regard. Uh, don't really have the connection to Black Clover to think, oh yeah, it's about time or anything like that. But hey, something's happening.
I mean, I do.
Stuff keeps happening in Black Clover. That's good. So
I do like it. And I think I'm kind of interested to see where this goes. This isn't me saying like I dismiss it. We're running low on time, so I really don't have time to like go over each little part. But I still enjoy this chapter. It's, so let's see what happens next week.
Chapter 173 of One Piece is the Kozuki clan. All the stuff you thought, yeah, that's how it went. There's not really anything that happens in this chapter that's like, what? So there's some important stuff that gets revealed, but it's mostly like, yeah, I know, you established that or hinted towards it strong enough that I knew about that.
We do get the confirmation about Denjiro being Kawamatsu.
We knew that.
No, we didn't know that. It was strongly hinted that might be the case, since that was the only member of the whatever Akazawa 9 or whatever her name is that we didn't know who that was, yet that was still a supremely important character in the Wano arc. So
Denjiro's Kyoshiro, yes. So apparently he was so incredibly angry about what happened to his mentor and his mentor's family that his eyebrows like permanently changed shape, and that's why he has the weird eyebrows as Kyoshiro. Mm-hmm. So it is that he's actually so, emotionally stricken that his appearance has changed, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, like Silencio from Seis Manos. He gets angry enough, his eyebrows change.
That was a little bit silly. And of course he becomes the new mob boss. We see stuff, when Toki was with Kawamatsu, but then she went missing and ended up meeting up with Kyoshiro again. And he says, like, okay, the day that the great battle comes, we must not tell anyone about me, not even our allies. From this day on, I will protect you in Kawamatsu's stead. You must call yourself Kamurasaki. So they hatched their plan, which we have still not seen what actually it is yet. So that's one of the mysteries still to remain. Other stuff that happens, we see, the others actually getting away. We see why the members that got sent through time were separated from the others, because the others got, held up fighting against Kaido's goons. And we also see why Momonosuke is kind of a coward, because Kaido actually literally just burst into their home, knocked out Toki, grabbed him by his entire body in his fist and held him over the ledge and was going to drop him to his death. And it's like, if I kill you, I presume the Kozuki clan is finished. And Momonosuke said defiantly, father is a great warrior, and I will one day carry this nation on my shoulders. And Kaido's like, that's a dream someone else put in your mouth. I didn't realize you were so young. And Momonosuke cries out for his father. Kaido throws him to the floor and says, that is Odin's son. Let him perish in the flames of the castle. And he has set the helm ablaze and flies off in his dragon form. Kinemon managed to save them. Toki addressed them all and said, come to me. I have something to tell you all. And of course, that's where they got sent to the future. Save for Hiyori. And they don't really say exactly why, I don't think, because Toki sends them ahead, but keeps Hiyori. She delivers her big thing about about her prophecy and sending them ahead, and and yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure why Toki didn't send her ahead. I'm sure there's some logic to it that maybe we haven't gotten, or it's been kind of lost in all this, but. Yeah.
And we do, I think the last important detail is we see Orochi after, all of them had escaped. He's sitting in a literally boiling, scalding hot bath. But he says, I can't stop shivering. Bring me the bones of the Kozuki samurai. Why can't you find them? So, of course, this whole time, those rumors that he is deathly afraid of them returning or have begun already. So,
people are saying that it's just in case Momonosuke died, there'd be another heir, which I guess, I mean, that makes sense. I don't know if it's ever explicit. The whole time travel thing felt kind of weirdly paced because I had trouble sitting. I was like, so when did they send? Like, there's no instance where it looks like she specifically uses her power.
Don't even see it happen. Yeah.
And they go someplace, so that's probably...
I think that this is one of those cases where even at the conclusion of the flashback, we're not going to have the entire story of what happened because it'll be more dramatically impactful if we see it explained in the present when something big happens. Anyway, so that's it. That's One Piece. It was a necessary chapter, I guess, in order to connect from all of this and in order to like drop the last few remaining plot threads before we catch up in the present. Although it's not established even yet that we're going to end this flashback yet. But it seems like we're running out of things to do before we go back to the present. So
yeah, I'm really excited to, like, again, I'm ready for that chapter where we go back to the present and we deal with the fact that it looks as though the entire war has been ended before it started. And what happens, like, that's where I'm just like, I want to see that. And I love this arc. I love this flashback. It's been going on for like 4 months now. I am ready to just get
my body is ready.
Yeah, like I want to get there.
Okay, that, guys, is gonna do it for Weekly Manga Recap this week. So it's time to name our favorites. What were your favorite chapter and MVP, Chris?
Favorite chapter is gonna be Spy Family. I think that was a really fun chapter this week.
Okay, I'm gonna echo you on Spy Family. I thought it was the best chapter. I think there's just a lot of like just kind of necessary chapters that happened this week in terms of you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this in order to set up for this. There's no like, oh, this is a big thing that happened. And even in the ones where it was, we made fun of them. So, so that's going to be my choice. My character of the week is going to be Midnight.
Okay.
Because she showed a side to herself that we don't get to see, at least in the main series. From what I understand, she plays a major supporting role in the Vigilantes spinoff, and you get to see more of her there. But this is a side of Midnight's personality that you don't really get to see, you know, her good mentor side, which is weird because she's a teacher. But the fact that, you know, she was there, she realized that a student was really needed her assistance, and she said the thing that he needed in order to encourage him and get him in action. And it worked. And it was a cool little thing of like, hey, you know, don't think of all the people who are depending on you. Think of one person who is important to you right now. So.
Part of me wants to give it to Peter Rodri for the sake of like, could you be an MVP by being an LVP? But in lieu of that,
he went so far back around.
Yeah, you loop around. You're like, I guess you're the most important character this week by being by far the lamest. But I think I'm going to give it to Nanashi from Samurai 8. I think this was a really good chapter for them.
Yeah. All right.
By the way, Spy Family was the chapter of the week for the audience.
No surprise
and
there.
Kaminari won the audience poll.
I get that. Still not good enough. All right. Come to me, boy. You're not allowed to date her until you've won 5 audience. No, I'm just kidding.
I have to sit here and I'm like, is this the first time Samurai 8 has won anything for our audience polls? Like, I had to sit here. It's like, is this the first time?
You might want to just hit Control F on that one. All right, guys, that is going to do it for Weekly Manga Recap. We want to thank you all for joining us. We record the show here live on twitch.tv/RoloT, usually around 7:30 to 8 Eastern Time, Wednesdays. And if you want to stay updated on exactly when we start the show, follow on Twitter, WMR Podcast. And you can also follow your hosts at Nick F. Time, at RoloT. You can also check out our past episodes on weeklymangarecap.podbean.com. Be sure to give us a comment, rating, all that good stuff. You can also join our Discord. There you can do stuff like just send us feedback. You can suggest manga for us to read by going on the Google Doc the Ninja X3i maintains. And of course, we want to give a special thanks to our Patreon supporters. Your support allows us to create bonus content for you guys to enjoy. Steve Mann, our Tyrocarist. Infamous Planet for creating the frame for the stream. Milo Jack Stillitz and Winslow Cheddar for the opening sequence of Weekly Manga Recap. And that is going to do it. Coming up pretty soon, we should be ready to do Zatch Bell, whatever you want to call it. They changed the name for the English adaptation, and I'm not sure what names we're going to be using whenever we talk about it. It'll be easier in some cases to just say the English names, because some of them are literally just shorter versions of the Japanese ones. But anyway, that'll be for possibly next time. Probably next time.
Exactly. All right, guys. Hey, the NBA might be canceling its season, but we aren't, guys. No sickness could take us down. Although I was sick yesterday, and I thought, I was like, oh, I might have to cancel the podcast. So, you know what? Maybe I had myself on that, guys. So stay safe, wash your hands.